The Ambitious Radio Network. Conversations with ambitious entrepreneurs and thought leaders. Are you an entrepreneur, startup junkie, or just someone interested in improving their leadership skills? If you're looking to be motivated, inspired, and uncover what it takes to get to the next level, listening to Ambitious Radio will be well worth the investment of your time. We have weekly engaging conversations with today's most influential thought leaders and entrepreneurs as they discuss their successes, failures, tipping points, and other priceless information that you can apply immediately after listening. Now, here's your host, Doug Parker.
All right, welcome back to Ambitious Radio. This is your host, Doug Parker, and we have another great guest lined up for you today. We've got Jeffrey Slayter, and Jeffrey's a top researcher of leadership and self-awareness and the application of the high-performing awakening entrepreneurs. He's a positive disruptor of psyches in a practical and good way in the areas of self-awareness and leadership, having played the role of transformational coach for the last 18 years to over 3 million people. Yes, 3 million in 12 different countries. He shared the stage with the incredible thought leaders such as Sir Richard Branson, Brian Tracy, Tim Ferriss, Tony Robbins, and many others. And he questions the validity and beliefs that are holding leaders back. Jeffrey, welcome to the show, sir. What did I miss in the intro?
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. I think the only thing that was missed was I made a lot of mistakes along the way too. You know, it's like we don't get to where we are without making some mistakes, and I've continued to make mistakes today, and I learn from them as best I can. So, but thanks for having me on, Doug. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, man, I love it. You know, I know we had a time scheduled a while back, and we had to reschedule. I know you're kind of on the other side of the world now, so you're in Australia right now, right?
Yeah, I'm in Australia. It's an incredible place.
Man, I'll tell you what, I can't wait to see it one day. It's I've been in Japan for the past month, and I'll be here for another couple days in Texas, and then I'm headed back to Japan for a month. And so I've never, prior to a few weeks ago, I had never been to Asia or really anywhere in the East at all, mainly in South America, Central America kind of stuff. But what took you to Australia?
Well, what happened was we were touring all over the United States speaking about business and transformation. And there was a promoter there that was one of the bigger promoters in Australia. And they said, come out to Australia and speak on stage, and we'll put together a group of people. And they started doing that. And then I didn't want to keep flying back and forth. And I found myself really falling in love with the people here and the country. And then I just chose to move here and have a change. And so that's what happened.
Got it. And that makes a lot of sense. So let's talk a little bit just about who you are. I mean, here in the next couple segments, we'll jump into the business side of things. But I mean, tell us who you are, where you're from, where did you grow up, those kind of things.
Well, I just recently got back from the Andes Mountains in South America, and the more I spend time with ancient medicine and indigenous people, and kind of that's my thing is modern business and high performing entrepreneurs emerging that, the more I realize that I'm still discovering who I am, and it's a continuous discovery. So to answer who I am is I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. But on the other note, my background is I grew up in Honolulu, Hawaii, and my father was an entrepreneur, and he really struggled for years and years and years growing up. And then finally, with persistence, his company was purchased. And I saw what it was like to go from struggling to having more choices in life. And, my parents used to have really challenging times. And I remember growing up where we couldn't really feed the family, and mom's credit cards would be maxed, and grandma would come over and give us mangoes and things like that to feed the family. And then when my dad's company was purchased, things changed, and because of his persistence. And then I remember my dad coming home one day, and he'd be like, okay, kids, we're going to move to Silicon Valley. And that was a big change for me because I was a little Hawaiian kid in Hawaii, and then the whole family moved to Silicon Valley, and that's where Google, Apple, LinkedIn, and many of the bigger companies are. And went to a very, very slow-paced Hawaiian feel to a very high-paced, high-performing type environment. So moved to Silicon Valley, and then still growing up in Silicon Valley. My father then I was around entrepreneurial conversations all the time. And then he part of the acquisition was he was required to get a job, and he was required to have a job. They're called golden handcuffs. And he started to get a little frustrated with his job. And then he started another company. And many people might know the company today. It's known as Odesk or Upwork, and he's the co-founder, first CEO of that. there's other founders as well. That thing got started in Silicon Valley. I grew up around it. It was quite interesting, but of course I had to pave my own path. So then what happened was I went to college, got one of those degrees, and realized that I'm not cut out to have a job at all, really. And then started investing in real estate and started buying some real estate. And fast forward, by the time I was 26, I had acquired quite a bit of real estate. And then what happened was at around 27, 28, I actually ended up in this one project which I thought was going to be a sure thing, and it turned out to be an absolute nightmare. And the developer folded, the banks pulled a loan, and we couldn't finish the development project. It was a very large project, lost millions of dollars in that, and then the crash happened, and it was just done. Anytime you think that you've made it as a quote successful person, you're usually on your way down, is what I learned. I thought I'd made it, and sure, I guess I did. I was worth millions as a 20-year-old, but I got to say that I learned a lot that if you don't keep your eye on the ball, and you think you're successful, you're probably on your way down. So anyways, lost millions, and then that was a very humbling experience. I learned that there's always more to learn, and that if you don't stay humble and at the same time confident, like a paradox in itself, then therefore you can there's areas in your life that can fall apart, and that did. And I really wanted to, at that time, I just felt like killing myself. It was so hard because I worked for so many years to get it, but in the background I was attending lots of seminars in personal development and reading all kinds of books on personal development and everything. So I kind of had this secret passion of personal development and transformation and speaking. And then while I was losing this money, I got invited to a friend seminar, and he asked me to come speak about my experience. And I talked about I worked with this woman around her relationship with money in front of the room, and she had a transformation. And he said, "Why don't you come back in another month and you be the guy that speaks on transformation?" So then what happened was I made a couple $1,000s, and fast forward years later, ended up on the biggest stages in the world with Tony Robbins, DeMartini, Sir Richard Branson, Tim Ferriss, and many others in 13 different countries, generating millions, doing what I love. But then I also missed business as well, and along the way I managed to pick up a lot of business opportunities as well, because that's what happens when you put yourself out there. So for those of you that are looking at putting yourselves out there, I highly encourage you to put yourself out there, because opportunities will flow your way. So that's the short version.
Sure. Well, so there's a bunch of stuff to unpack there. So, you kind of glimpsed over the part about, hey, you've gone through some hard times, family, trying to make ends meet, and, grandma bringing over mangoes and that kind of stuff. So when you look back now, it's easy to see those kind of things. But as a kid, did you realize how desperate the situation was, or did it just seem like, okay, well, this is kind of what's going on in my world. This is my normal?
Yeah, at the time as a kid, all I knew is mom and dad were fighting about money, and it was hard. Mm-hmm. I didn't have any comparison except for it was challenging, and a part of me wanted to fix it, and I couldn't, and it was very frustrating. And maybe it's what drove me a little bit to achievement now. To achieving what I achieved was derived from an insecurity of wanting to fix things and make it better. And later, I've moved through that now, but I will say that it was very painful at the time, and I didn't have a comparison.
Okay. And, that's one of those kind of things. It seems like the hardest times, they give you these perspectives where, you grind it out a little bit more, because whenever, if you lived in the sunshine every single day, it is practically a desert, right? You got to have some of those rainy days to appreciate the really bright sunshiny days. So it's a weird dynamic that you have to go through, and I've been through great times and bad times and ups and downs and all arounds myself, and it's just the world that we live in. Now, one question I kind of want to ask you, and this is one to process through, you may not be able to come up with off the top of your head, but is there anything that you can think of over the past 5 to 10 years maybe that you really felt a certain way about, and with a little bit of maybe it's maturity, maybe it's more business experience, that you've kind of changed your direction on it 180 degrees? You felt this way about it, and now you're like, you know what? With a little more information, I've made new decisions.
Yeah, and I think that's hindsight. That's happened. This one might be a little confronting for some people, but it's my journey, and I'm just going to share it. It's up to them to choose how they process it. Since I was 20 years old, I've had a daily meditation practice, and I still encourage that. I've also read many books on meditation, to from Kriya Yoga to the autobiography of a yogi, and it's been a daily practice of meditation in my life. And even went to ashrams and spent time with incredible gurus, quote gurus, things of that nature. And I realized, and for years and years, and then the thing to know is I've never drank in my life, so I never drank. I never did any drugs in high school. Doesn't make me any better. It's just there was alcoholism in my family, and it just wasn't my thing. And there was not, my mom and dad never drank, but the grandparents, my mom's grandparents did. And so I saw the impact. So I've never drank, and never did drugs. And then one day, my friend years and years ago, my friend sent me a documentary about ancient medicines in the jungle and ancient wisdom, like the shamans in the jungle. And he goes, "You should see this." And I was like, "I don't do that. I don't do drugs in the jungle. I don't go do medicines in the jungle. That's weird. That's archaic. I could get hurt." And then one day, and then I kept meditating, and for like the next 2 weeks, it was like, go to the jungle, go to the jungle, go to the jungle. Like my instinct from my heart was said, go to the jungles, and I pushed it away because I don't do that stuff. That's something weird. But then I was also reflecting, and I said, why am I still getting this call? I don't get I've been around parties, I've been around drinking, and I still don't get peer pressure into this. But this is coming from the inside. And at the time, I had done a lot of personal development, attended seminars, done everything. And I realized that maybe I should go. So then I called my mom. I said, I'm going to the jungles. She says, you could die. Why are you going to the jungles? I'm spending time with these indigenous people. And then I went and ended up in an ayahuasca ceremony, ended up in a wachuma ceremony, and Kambo and many others, and quickly learned how little I know and how much more there is to discover. And in the Amazon, there's thousands of plants that are there to heal the human family and reconnect us to really the connection to the earth and our spirit, or whatever you want to call it. And it was incredible. And it was something that I was wrong about. I had judged because it was something that looked foreign to me, and I didn't understand it, and it was not Western at all. And I'm very great. And since then, I've been taking executives, CEOs to the jungles, having a meet with very, very ancient tribes. Some of them don't even know what money is, and doing that, and it's been life changing. In fact, I just got back 3 weeks ago, so I was definitely wrong about that.
That is great information for our listeners, and that's exactly the kind of stuff that we're talking about. That's why we do the show. We want to expose people to other leadership styles, to other opportunities, to entrepreneurs, and how they're making it happen. So if you like what you're hearing, you can go back and reference the show notes on ambitiousradio.com. All the content that we discuss will be logged and profiled there. You can also like us on Facebook or on Twitter. Tune in after a brief word from our sponsors, and we'll be talking more with Jeffrey about his career pursuits and his experience of becoming an ambitious entrepreneur right here on the Ambitious Radio Network. Hey, ambitious listeners, you hear us interviewing entrepreneurs all the time, and there's a common theme. They want to be more productive and improve their communication. As an ambitious entrepreneur, you're always on the go. So turn your mobile phone into a business phone system with Grasshopper, the entrepreneur's phone system. The Ambitious Radio Network recently partnered with Grasshopper to offer our listeners a special discount. Log on to ambitiousradio.com and click on the Grasshopper banner in the bottom right-hand corner. Get a new business number or keep your current one. Sound professional with a main greeting and multiple extensions that forwards callers to your mobile phone or others in your organization. Get a toll-free number or local number for your business with multiple extensions. Set up each extension with custom call forwarding to any phone in the world. Get your voicemails emailed to you as an audio attachment or transcribed an email. Keep business calls separate from your personal calls. Plans start at $12 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Remember to click on the Grasshopper banner at ambitiousradio.com for a special discount for our listeners. Join the over 150,000 small business owners that have stayed connected with Grasshopper. See how Grasshopper works? It's the entrepreneur's phone system. Turn the world into your office. All right, we're back on the Ambitious Radio Network, and today we got Jeffrey Slayter here with us. And I'll tell you what, it is great information. I'm hearing about the Amazon, all these plants, the different things that have helped him heal his body. And And, you know, there's just so many things that are going on out there. You've got your professional adventures, and we're going to jump into that here in just a second, Jeffrey. But let's just, you know, if you could kind of button up that last piece. You said you've taken other leaders down there, other CEOs and different things. So what does that look like whenever you're talking to these CEOs and saying, hey, look, part of my coaching is I want to take you down to the Amazon and do some, I don't know if it's natural drugs or plant healing or what it is. How do you describe that?
Yeah, they're called, well, the Western world will call them drugs because they're massively confused about what they are. And in the Western world, we've been programmed to think these are wrong when actually they've been around for thousands of years, older than the pharmaceutical industry. So they're called entheogens, which are, and it's all with intention. And so I would call them entheogens. In fact, I normally would, people should go get my book about it. It's called The Evolutionary Entrepreneur, and they can just read it. It's the whole story about this, but that way for more information for people out there. But really, and 100% of the profits go to the jungle anyway. So really, what happened is entrepreneurs, they achieve what they want. You know, they get there. A little bit like greyhound racing. I'm not a fan of it, but you know those dogs, and they run after a metal rabbit, and then the metal rabbit goes and they run after it, and they think it's real. And the entrepreneurs are kind of like, and I was running for the metal rabbit, and I actually thought the metal rabbit was real. You know, if I finally get millions of dollars, I get the big house, and I live where I want, and the perfect life, then I'm gonna be happy. And when, you know, every once in a while, if you look it up, some of those dogs get the metal rabbit. I got the metal rabbit, and I chewed it, and I realized it was fake. And I realized that most of what the Western world tells me success is a lie. And I realized that I have no concept of really what truly brings me joy and gratitude for my life. And I had a lot to learn. And I had to get the metal rabbit to do it. And then I tried to go back and tell the other entrepreneurs that the rabbit's metal and it's not real, and they think you're nuts, many of them, and some listen. And the ones that seem to have achieved it or grabbed the metal rabbit, they say, hey, I've done what Western world says to do. I'm worth, you know, $100 million. I've done this, I've done that. Now what? And that's when they're ready. They've gone down the rabbit hole far enough to go, I'm ready. And then what happens is they ask me, and I say, come with me, let's go on an adventure. And I had a vision of taking some of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world and merging them with the most, quote, successful shamans, ayahuasqueros, and many medicine men and women, and putting them in a maloca or a room together and having them do a ceremony and seeing what happens. And the transformation, the people, what they get out of these experiences, they come back with more empathy for themselves, their families. They come back with more connection to themselves, and they develop themselves as leaders. And it's been proven that when they come back with more empathy and more, then their company breeds more empathy because leadership starts at the top, and then it impacts their profitability and the level of engagement with their employees, and then their profitability goes up even more. So it's a direct impact. And it also helps them feel more fulfilled, but it's not an easy journey, and it's not for everybody at all. In fact, it's very challenging, and it can be very disruptive as well in a good way. And that's the power of these medicines, and people should definitely take. I mean, Tim Ferriss talks about he doesn't know a billionaire who hasn't worked with a psychedelic. Okay, and I can say the same thing. So there's something, you know, Tim Ferriss's book Tools for Titans. He has a whole chapter about this stuff. In Silicon Valley, this is normal. To the rest of the world, it's a little cutting edge.
No, and I'm looking at that book right now on my desk. It's a big old book, like a Bible. I mean, it's about 2.5 inches wide. I mean, it's huge. Tools of Titans, and again, we'll put links to that in there. And I listen to Tim's podcast all the time, and there's always great nuggets in there. And you know, so let's chat about that a little bit. You know, all that sounds like a really cool, you know, adventure to be able to go on. And, you know, as an entrepreneur or as a business person, you know,
yes.
if you're known for doing that, most of us grind and just make it happen. You know, my first exposure to Tim Ferriss was a 4-hour work week, and I didn't read the book because the title, that's the craziest thing I ever heard of. 4 hour, there ain't a person around that can actually make it happen in 4 hours. And if there is, I don't even want to meet him because I'll be too jealous of him. Now, obviously, in getting to know him a lot more and those kind of things, I realize that has nothing to do with what his book's about. It's about all these hacks and different things. But how do you monetize what you're doing? I mean, is it obviously you're doing some coaching, but what does that really look like? If someone wanted to, for instance, hire you, obviously, if you're taking trips down to Amazon, those aren't the same kind of coaching things where I'm spending an hour with you per month, So what does that look like?
Well, I work with about 7 clients a year personally, because I have other businesses I run, and then I also speak and do events with 100, 200 people in them, and people pay an event fee, and they go and I share and do work on business and transformation in there. And if people want to go to the Amazon, there's an application process, and I go through that, and I do charge for that. When I go to the Amazon with people, most of the costs go towards the jungle and the shamans. It's not a profitable. It's not very. It's in fact is minimally profitable. If it's not, it's kind of negative actually. Profitability, and it's fine with me. It's just what I love. I'm going to go there anyway, and why not bring 18 entrepreneurs with me?
Yeah, that's fantastic. So the majority of what you're doing, you said you've got other businesses and different things. Obviously, I want to hit on the book, and we talk a lot. You and I talked in the pre-show. I'm not here self-promoting anything other than just Ambitious Radio. You can get in other people to learn from what we got going on, but I do want to promote my guests and what they've got going on. And I know you kind of hit on the book, but you're saying that the majority or all of the profits from that are going to the Amazon as well. So what is it exactly that you really do? Where are you making your money at?
Where am I making my money? I've done some good trades, and so I think that where my a lot revenue comes from is from coaching one-on-one, and then what happens is I end up having a portion of their companies and things like that, and that turns out to be quite good. Also leading large events. So if people want to engage with me, they should get my book, The Evolutionary Entrepreneur, and if they read that book and they're like, this guy I can resonate with, if they don't like it, then we're probably not going to get along anyway. So it's all good. I'm clear I'm not for everybody, and neither is everybody else. We all have our people we're supposed to work with, and so the way to engage is through through speaking events, coaching one-on-one, and if they want to go to the Amazon, then that's another conversation.
Got it. No, that makes perfect sense, and that's good because we want to learn from you and how you're doing what you do. Let's talk about you mentioned some failures and over time, and you learn from those and your successes. We've got a couple minutes left in this segment. Can you talk about maybe what one of your favorite failures has been? And nobody ever likes failure. You're never going through, oh, this is great, I'm glad I'm failing. But when you go back and look in hindsight, is there anyone that you say, you know what, this one was really painful going through it, but man, I learned so much, and here's kind of how I process through that.
Oh, so the failures I've had that have been memorable was, I guess I can say I don't even know where to begin. I just so little I unfolded. What I mean by that is I just realized how little I know about living, and I guess recently I realized that there's so much more about how to live life. It was like I forgot to smile in my life and enjoy my life. It was just too busy trying to get somewhere and achieve things in my life, trying to make things happen. And I had lost sight of the present moment and this gift of, even being on this podcast with you, just the gift of life in this moment where I'm always trying to get somewhere. So I guess my biggest failure is living in the future.
Oh, man. That is a really good one, and it's kind of funny. I was talking to somebody today about one of the guests that Tim Ferriss had on his show, and she was a Japanese lady. And it was the only show that he's ever done it was in Japanese, and then he had a translator that was translating. And I'm drawing a blank on her name right now, but basically she was kind of like a minimalist and like just not doing anything that she didn't enjoy. And getting away from a bunch of commercialism and those kind of things. Now, personally, I like commercialism. I like having stuff. It does it for me. Like you mentioned earlier, some people, they may not like that, but for me, that's my deal.
Yeah.
But it's finding ways, to learn and go through those failures and man, forgetting to smile. Sometimes we can get going so hard about trying to make the next buck so we can buy the next thing. And it's kind of like Christmas. That little toy is really fun, like for the first little while. And then it's just another car. It's just another house. It's just another whatever. And finding a way to be happy with what you've got, I'm sure some of being around some of those other people that you had mentioned, down in Amazon and whatnot, To us, they have nothing. To them, they're like, what is all this junk that you guys have? Oh, we don't need any of that. So
yeah, it's pretty interesting to watch and to be a part of. I was just with a man who 40 years studying ancient medicines and plants, and then a woman who didn't even know what money was, but she was so joyful in her eyes and her happy, they had a spark. And I'm not saying we need to go that way. There's a purpose here. I'm just saying there's something to learn.
Yeah, fantastic information. Great for our listeners, and we appreciate everyone tuning in. If you like what you're hearing and you want to subscribe to who the next guest is going to be, you can text the word ambitious to 69922. That's 69922. Standard messaging rates will apply. Next, we'll be talking more to Jeffrey about his entrepreneurial journey and what he's currently working on, and then really what's next for him right here on the Ambitious Radio Network. Are you tired of paying too much for electricity from the former monopolies and getting terrible customer service? Do you really even know how much you're paying per kilowatt? Sometimes they quote you a lower rate, but then add back in the delivery charge. Ugh, how frustrating. Go to electricity.guru, that's right, .guru, for your free analysis. Who knows, with just a few referrals, you could actually earn free electricity. If you're tired of paying outrageous electricity bills, do something about it. Would you like to get a significant discount or even get free electricity? Go to electricity.guru and compare our rates to what you're currently paying. Many of our clients are saving anywhere from 15 to 20%. We also have a referral program that allows you to earn free electricity. Yes, free electricity. And you cannot beat free cents per kilowatt. Award-winning service, competitive rates, and low deposits, if even required. Go to electricity.guru for more details. That's electricity.guru. We offer free energy credits to customers who refer and activate 15 or more qualified customers to our electricity service and are not passed due on their bill. To get your free energy credit, your customers must be referred through the free customer gathering website. See electricity.guru for more details. All right, welcome back to the Ambitious Radio Network. Today we've got Jeffrey Slayter with us, and this guy is dropping all kinds of nuggets. He's been there, he's done that, he's succeeded in massive ways. He's failed a couple times, and he's learned from that. He's the author of The Evolutionary Entrepreneur, and I can't wait to really read the book. It sounds like it's right up my alley, and I hope it will be for you guys as well. But let's talk a little bit, just kind of about what's next for you, Jeffrey, and then how do you make that transition? Because, you seem like you've got a little bit of time on your hands that you choose what to do with. But how do you go through that decision-making process, and is there anything that's on the horizon that you're working on that you can discuss?
Yeah, sure. It's not easy trying to figure out what's next. It used to be about what Jeff wants, like what does Jeff want to do, and like a personality, like Jeff has a personality. And now instead of me trying to live life, I'm more so letting life live me and along for the journey. And so I'm still discovering what's next for me because it seems to be showing up. But then I used to have a lack of trust around what showed up, and because I didn't trust the universe or trust myself really. And now that I'm beginning to trust my own instinct again and the path of life, then life seems to be showing me a different path. And that path is, I realize that retirement, quote, retirement of the future is not about having a bunch of money in the bank and a nice house and living in suburbia in a nice house. Retirement is actually the currency of the future seems to be wisdom and learning as much as possible. And the only step to obtaining wisdom is to unlearn many of what we've learned. And what seems to be what's next for me is unlearning a lot of what I've learned about what I thought success was and fulfillment and success, all of that is. And I'm left with the incredible journey of life running through me. And what I ask of my human beings, the other human beings out there, is that we let life live us. The Western world has been designed to create trauma in our bodies, in our life, and we need to sometimes get out of the race at times and feel the gift of life again. I used to think I had to have a reason for living, like a reason for doing what I'm doing. But then I realized that birds just sing because they sing. That's all they do. They just sing. They're not worried about having to have a reason for singing. They're just singing. Perhaps we as human beings we don't need a reason to just live, and it's enough in itself. And as we live our life, we sing our song, and we don't need to have a reason for singing our song. We just sing because that's our song. And so as we move forward in life, let's just discover what we're here to. Let's just discover and let our song come out of us. And for me, the next song in my life is I feel that we're on the brink of a major disruption that's going to happen to our financial industries and our banking industries. I think we're on the brink within the next couple of years of that. And through that alchemy, perhaps what will take place is we'll reconnect to our sovereign nature again, and then what will actually unfold will be opportunities to build villages where we live together, and not separate anymore. It's been proven that when a child grows up around, not just around other young children, but they go around adults and children and different age groups, they're actually much more balanced and healthier and happier. So maybe there's a modern village that will occur, not like a hippie village, like a commune, but I mean, maybe we'll go back to living in villages again with new technologies that can support us, and we won't need to be so separate anymore. And then we won't look at what separates us. We'll start to look at what actually unifies us. And what unifies us right now is we are sick of the trauma, we're sick of the wars, and we're sick of living separate from each other, and we're sick of our food being poisoned. And what's going to bring us together is our connection to the earth, our connection to each other, our connection to our families, and we're going to reconnect to that. And then we're going to start building communities that support that, and we're going to take our sovereignty back.
So that's a lot of info you dropped just in like the last 45 seconds. Okay, so I want to hit on that for just a few minutes. Okay, so
Sure.
let's, I don't disagree with you at all. I mean, you never know when the next, big collapse of sorts is going to happen, because it's, especially in the U.S., you see so much. It's just so commercialized, and everything is about consumer confidence and people buying stuff. And when they stop doing that, then, the economy starts just crashing. So who knows what the heck's going to happen. But, I've got a brand new grandbaby that's 3 months old, and my son and his girlfriend and the baby live with us. And so there's a different dynamic than what I grew up with. That wasn't how I grew up, but there's a little bit more of that community, within our family right now. And the goal is always, seemingly, you become an adult, quote unquote, and then you move out and do what adults do, live on their own, right? And that's not how it's always been. And it's not seemingly healthy, because we seem to help out a little bit all the time, every day, with something with the baby. And it's not a burden to us or anything. It's cool to be able to do that. Yes. So, the problem, I think we see is everybody is so there's so much individualism and so selfish, if you will, that they just want their own thing. And the crazy thing is, we don't teach babies when they're little bitty to grab a hold of the toys when they're around other kids and say mine. But somehow they know to do that. I don't know how they do it. We obviously maybe teach them somehow, but can you just share a little bit more about that vision, what you're kind of thinking about and talking about there? If something bad happens, how would that come together? Because I don't know, man. It just seems like it always kind of goes back to the way it is, or the way it was.
Yeah, I think that I think it's happening now, actually. Not that it's going to happen, but it's not necessarily, in my perspective, bad or good. It's just happening, and it is what it is. It's information. And the current way things are can't sustain itself. We can't keep going the way we're going. We must go back to the original premise of who we are as human beings. We have to strip away all the cultural programming, all of this is how it should be. All that stuff, we got to strip it away, and we got to go back to that original premise, which is, and I ask this, is what really makes you happy? Where do you find joy? And where do you lose track of time? And wherever the people that are listening to this, wherever you lose track of time is probably what you love the most. Most likely, Doug, you enjoy spending time with the little one, and you lose track of time there. How do we get you spending as much time as possible? Being on podcasts, doing this because you enjoy it, spending time with the little ones. How do we do that? And maybe for some of you, the first step is to leave your jobs and go start a company so that you can spend more time doing what you love with your families. So the first step is asking yourself where you lose track of time. And I don't mean like where you're enjoying yourself. That's it. And then how do you go build a life and fund a life where you're doing just that? And it takes a little bit of work, but that's the first step.
Where do you lose track of time, man? That's a great starting point. No question about it. And we're kind of wrapping up this segment. We got just a little bit left, but you've spoken on stage with so many of these great other leaders and things to that effect. Now, when it comes to speaking, is there anything that you would like to speak on maybe that you haven't yet? If you were going to do a TED Talk or something, is there something that you'd like to go out there and speak on that's not your normal professional stuff that you've been doing for the past couple of years?
I have. I definitely have spoken on this before, but I'll tell you, I've been on stage with Richard Branson, Tony Robbins, DeMartini, and Tim Ferriss, and the list goes on and on. I've done it, and it was awesome, and I have massive respect for those guys. My favorite speaking engagement ever was a room of 40 people. I was sitting next to a man who had feathers the size of his, like feathers that were like 2 feet from his up from his head. He was wearing a headdress, and the guy was a massive medicine man that served peyote all over the world, and he was connected to the tribes, and he spoke about this particular medicine and how important and sacred it is to the human family, and what it can do. And I spoke next to him, and he spoke, and I spoke, and it was my favorite speaking engagement that I've ever done, because it was a reconnection to the guy in mind and the guy in heart. When I say Gaia, I mean the earth, or people can call it, if it's not the earth, they can say, the connection to spirit, whatever they want to call it. That was my favorite speaking engagement. 40 people in a room with a guy with feathers on his head.
Yeah, that's great stuff. And it's amazing, seeing there's people out there that would kill to be on stage with some of the people that you just mentioned. And yet, and while it was exciting and all those things, you've got something that is just seemingly way off topic that you're really passionate about, that you really enjoy. So that is great information for our listeners. And we're going to have another quick break from our sponsors, and then we'll wrap up the show hearing more from Jeffrey, what he does to recharge his ambitious body, mind, and spirit, right here on the Ambitious Radio Network.
Here's another RepairMyCreditNow.com story.
It's a day this family had dreamed of for quite some time. They were finally getting that brand new SUV. The salesperson at the auto dealership gave them the keys and told them to take it for the weekend. He'd prepared the documents and called them Monday morning. The kids had already installed the headrest DVD when the phone rang. Seems there was a problem with their credit they were unaware of. They'd have to return the SUV to the dealership immediately. Embarrassing, to say the least.
www.repairmycreditnow.com.
Hello, this is Doug Parker with RepairMyCreditNow.com. Do you have less than perfect credit, a repo, maybe some late payments, a collection account? Are they being reported accurately? Studies show that over 70% of Americans have inaccuracies on their credit reports. Where do you fit in? Go to RepairMyCreditNow.com for your free credit report evaluation. And remember, your credit is your future. If you want to get started now, log on now. RepairMyCreditNow.com.
RepairMyCreditNow.com. www.repairmycreditnow.com.
All right, we're back on the Ambitious Radio Network, and we're wrapping up the show. It's hard to believe we're already 3/4 of the way through this hour. We've got Jeffrey Slayter here with us, and he is very successful. Spoken with people that we would all probably kill to be on stage with. Sir Richard Branson, Tim Ferriss, I mean, you name it, Tony Robbins, really just knocking out of the park. But, that takes a lot out of you, and we've talked a lot on this show about some of the failures and some of the things that are draining. Can you talk a little bit about what you do that fills yourself? You talked about that you did meditation and some of that, but is there a specific rhythm that you go through? What does your daily rhythm look like? What time do you get up, go to bed, those kind of things?
Well, lately, because I'm a little jet lagged from travel, I've been getting up around 5 a.m., but really I usually get up around 7. And so I usually wake up, and in the morning I, of course, do about 30 minutes of meditation, and then go have a smoothie, and then take a walk on the beach, and then go for a surf until around 10 a.m. And I usually start, I guess the day starts at 10 a.m. in that aspect. I mean, day starts when I wake up, but 10 a.m. is when I will maybe initiate some calls and things like that. And that's it. But mainly the thing is that I've realized is so important is drinking clean water, eating clean food, organic food, having a little garden, and then surfing and spending time in nature. And then also at the same time, being on with great people like you, Doug, on phone calls, sharing a message that inspires me, connecting with other business leaders, making a difference. I feel that the high-performing entrepreneurs out there, we have a responsibility to connect to our hearts and unify, and then build something incredible for this world. And so I like to spend time with other high-performing entrepreneurs, structuring deals and putting things together.
Sure. So meditation. Let's talk about that. You say you spend 30 minutes doing that. So I in the past have been terrible at that kind of stuff. I try to pay attention. I try to meditate, and then I'm like squirrel. And I'm thinking about something totally different, and it's really tough for me. So what do you use to meditate? You've been doing it for years. Has it always just come naturally to you? Have you gotten better at it?
No. It's sometimes I really am horrible at it, and a lot of squirrels happen to me. I used to want to be a good meditator and everything, and I realized that was just my ego and trying to be a good, like it's something to achieve or something like that. And now I just go with the flow. And sometimes I like to listen to music for 30 minutes and like soft music. There's plenty of meditation things on YouTube, so I'll do that. And if my mind's not really racing, then I don't need music. So it depends on how I feel. So for the people that are challenged with meditation, just turn on a 30-minute meditation track, and go with that. That's good enough. And just try and have an area in your house that you go to and do that. And if you do that every day for 30 days, you'll feel the difference. Next thing is if you're having challenges meditating or having a still mind, then we have to clean up the food that you eat. Stimulant foods like coffee and other things, and foods with chemicals in it usually will disrupt your mind state. So clean up your food as much as you can. It'll make it a lot easier. And so both those things, music and clean food and clean water, will help.
I'm glad you mentioned that. This is exactly why I do this show, because I want to learn, and I hope our listeners get as much out of it as I do. But it hit me, like, I'm not big on massages and that kind of stuff, but every once in a while I'll do like a couples massage with my wife or whatever the case is, just to do it. But every time, they've always got the most like peaceful music going, and that's the one time I can actually unwind and I hear that music. I don't know why I'm never connected the dots there. I'm trying to like do these little meditation apps and breathe and all this junk, and I just can't make that work for me. But I do listen, and I slow down in that music. And you're saying whether it's YouTube or wherever you can get those, so I'll try to get a meditation track and listen to that, and that might be the golden nugget for me out of this whole conversation, as crazy as that sounds.
You know what, man? Just start easy, as we do. Just don't worry about the breathing techniques and all these techniques. Just listen to the music for 30 minutes. Basically, don't even think of it as meditation. Listen to a song for 30 minutes and just chill, and that's good enough to start.
That's good. That's good advice. It really is. Now, you mentioned surfing. So have you? Obviously, you grew up in Hawaii. So have you always been a surfer?
Yeah, since I'm a young age, it's just something I love. When you paddle out and the sun's there, and it's there's a stupid line that says only a surfer knows the feeling. It is kind of like that. I'm not like a great surfer or anything. I've just been surfing for a while, and it's my chance to get outside. I don't have my mobile phone with me. Nobody can reach me. It's great. I love it. And so, yes, it's been almost a daily routine. But the best thing I ever did to change my life was make sure I lived by the ocean.
So let's, we got maybe 5 minutes left on the show, but I do want to hear about this time where you obviously were in Hawaii. You've left, and now you're away from, the ocean. And you said the best thing you did was move back by the ocean. But what was that time like when you weren't by the ocean? Where were you, and did it just totally throw off your rhythm?
Yeah, I didn't. And it threw off my rhythm so much I didn't even know it threw off my rhythm. That's the worst kind of rhythm throw off, when you don't know what you don't know. And so what happened was I moved from Hawaii, then moved to Silicon Valley, and then when I grew up with my parents in Silicon Valley, I lived in Cupertino, and I drove to the beach every day, and it was about 40 minutes almost every day, and surfed. I wasn't the best attendance at school, so I'd surf in school. But anyways, another conversation. So essentially, then I went to college, kept surfing, and then what happened was I got really achiever mindset oriented, and I wanted to make things happen. So I moved to actually San Francisco. And in San Francisco, I could see the ocean from my place, but it was a bay. And for years, I don't know how many years, 4 or 5 years, I just lived there. And I couldn't figure out what was missing in my life. And I got to acknowledge Frank Kern. He's a high-paid internet marketer. I went and had a surf with, and Frank's like, let's go surf. I saw him one day at a conference, and we decided to go surf. And I went for a surf with Frank Kern, and I looked at Frank's life, and he lived by the ocean. And he asked me, he goes, where do you live? I said, I think I need to move. He goes, you can do it. You're making enough money. You can live where you want. And I was like, you know what? I think you're right. And Frank's like, yeah, do it. Like move near the ocean. And I could see how happy Frank was living by the ocean, doing what he loved and surfing every day. You know, Frank's the kind of guy, he had his Ferraris outside his garage, like on the street, and Bentley and Rolls Royces. And then he goes, check out my garage. He opens up his garage. He's got like 40 surfboards safe in his garage, and he's got his Ferrari in the trash alley. Okay, so it was really funny, and he had all his custom boards. And so one of the things that's great about surfing is that you don't need much to be happy and to enjoy your life. And when Frank opened up his garage, he had all these surfboards there. I was like, that's so Frank Herndon, so good. And it inspired me to move by the beach. So then I moved by the beach and started surfing again. It was the best thing I ever did.
You know, that's good stuff. And, you know, you're listening right now, you're probably thinking about something like that. You know, there's some people that love the mountains. There's some people in Texas, it's huge. So we've got a little bit of everything. But I grew up out in East Texas, and it kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie Days of Thunder with Tom Cruise, you know, back from the 80s or 90s, whenever it was. But one of the guys in there, he talks about, you know, he came basically from the country, and he started racing cars, and he just got to the point where he just wants to make enough money where he can go back to the country where he's from. And just hang out there. And I've noticed that too. You know, you get to the point where you want to leave where you're from, you want to do big and great things, and then at some point you just kind of want to make enough money where you can go back where you came from and make it better, but just do the basic stuff that you grew up doing for whatever reason. So it reminded me of that story with the surfing. It's just the simple things of going back and being able to do that on a daily basis. So that's great. Well, now we talked a little bit, you know, about the book. We talked about people engaging, you know, with you, but if someone wanted to contact you, what would that look like? Are you social? Are you on the internet? How would they go about engaging with you?
Yeah, they should go to jeffreyslater.com. That's JEFFREY Slater.com. And on there I have interviews with me and my dad talking about everything from, you know, I have a podcast on there that's a free download that's talking about $100 million acquisitions of companies. And then there's topics about medicine, ayahuasca, and other things on that thing. So everything's there. There's over 1,000 documentaries there, and there's free downloads. And they should just go there. And then from there, if they want to plug in and go to an event, they can come to an event. All the events, all the info's there.
Fantastic. Okay, so you said over 1,000 documentaries. What's your favorite documentary?
Yeah, there's a documentary called Wisdom Keepers. There's a subtitle to it, I forgot, but it's called Wisdom Keepers, and that's my favorite documentary.
Fantastic. Well, we'll put a link to that as well. What a great interviewee you've been.
Actually, it's by Jeffrey Wim. I just want to, because it can be confusing. Jeffrey, W-I-U-M. That's the best documentary.
Jeffrey Wim. Okay, I'll put that on the site as well.
Yeah.
Man, you've been great. I love it when I learn stuff. 99.99% of the time I do, and I've gotten several golden nuggets here with you, man. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Doug. I much appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Well, thanks to our sponsors. We could not do it without them. Tune in on Saturdays to Ambitious Radio, where we interview thought leaders and exciting entrepreneurs changing the faces of their organizations. Remember, you can make money or you can make excuses, but you cannot make both. So go out there and be ambitious.
Thank you for listening to the Ambitious Radio Network, hosted by serial entrepreneur Doug Parker. Join us weekly as we have engaging conversations with ambitious entrepreneurs and thought leaders on topics that can be applied immediately after listening. Like what you've heard? Listen to other interviews at ambitiousradio.com or subscribe on iTunes.